A hosepipe ban for the whole country from tomorrow. A fourth day of wildfires sweeping through Slieve-na-Mon, while blazes also rage across France and Spain.
Shops are selling out of fans and people in A-rated homes are finding it almost impossible to cool down.
While the warmer temperatures have allowed some unexpected days at the beach in Ireland, there's little doubt that we are not prepared for the many challenges we'll face as climate change turns into climate crisis.
Well, in a moment, we'll find out what we need to do to adapt. But first, Conor McMorrow has this report.
An Air Corps helicopter battles to contain wildfires at Castle Kelly, where the Dublin and Wicklow mountains meet. The crew dropped water from Loch Bray on the fires last weekend, an increasingly common sight across Europe. In southeastern France, a few weeks ago, 2 children aged 2 and 4 were found dead in their family's car. Another incident making headlines last week was that of a 66-year-old woman's body being discovered at her Paris home.
Paris was built before we had this kind of heat, so people really aren't prepared for it. The city isn't prepared for it. People have died in the searing heat because they've stayed indoors. The big thing to remember is that the city is just not built for this kind of heat because it didn't get it before.
The French Public Health Agency estimates there were 5,700 additional deaths recorded during the June heatwave that scorched France. In Irish media, like everywhere, the term climate crisis is increasingly used instead of climate change. We have long heard of the impending crisis. Are we now in it, and where do we go from here? The threat that has caused most attention has been wildfires. Particular weather conditions have caused wildfires across Europe's Iberian Peninsula over the last 18 months.
So last year, there was a wet spring in Iberia, and we think that promoted a lot of vegetation growth. This quickly swung to dry conditions, and then as a result, we had some extreme fire behaviour. Had that wet spring not occurred, we might not have had such an extreme fire season. And we're seeing the same thing this year.
What do this summer's wildfires indicate about the duration of heatwaves?
There are 2 kind of growing bodies of evidence. One is that wildfire seasons across Europe are extending, so they're starting earlier and finishing later, and there's quite a lot of literature around this. And that's just due to increased temperatures and dry conditions. The other one is something that we call hydroclimatic rebound. And as the atmosphere warms, it holds more moisture, or has the potential to hold more moisture. And so what happens is you get these swings from hot, dry conditions to wet conditions, and these swings are happening more frequently.
While it's difficult to predict future weather patterns, should countries get prepared for more fires in the years ahead?
In the UK and Ireland, we get a lot of grass and peatland fires. We get a lot of early fires, early season fires in the UK and Ireland, whereas in the Mediterranean, you get a lot of forest fires. So each country needs to adapt to meet its own demands.
We'll start in Westmeath, and the M6 remains closed on either side of Junction 2 Kinnegad and Junction 3 Rochefort Bridge, with reduced visibility due to a nearby bog fire.
This bog fire in Westmeath last week shows Ireland is not immune from the effects of extreme weather. Retailers were asked to suspend the sale of disposable barbecues as they are among the causes of recent wildfires. While it is not always clear what starts wildfires, heatwave conditions add to their ferocity. In Tipperary, firefighters have been battling to get wildfires under control on Slieve-na-Mon. There have also been gorse and forest fires in Cork and Kerry, and this footage shows the Irish Air Corps dropping more water on fires in Wicklow.
Well, I remember the summer of 1976 when it was even a longer heat wave than it is now. But actually, we're not talking about ancient history. This is probably the coolest summer we're ever going to have going on into the future, because that's what's happening with the world warming up.
Ian Anilauna, environmentalist and author, says there have long been changes to our climate, but now they pose an acute existential threat.
I've been talking about this for the last 40 years. The public in Ireland are slow learners, it would have to seem, because we think of climate change as warming. But in fact, What do you think all that rain in February was about and all the flooding? What about the erosion and the coastlines? What about our bogs drying up? These are all impacts of climate change. We have warmer winters now, we hardly ever get any frost. And this year we got these temperatures, we got fires breaking out, and then people think, oh yes, we have climate change now. Whereas the impacts of it in Ireland are going to be storms and rain and flooding more than the actual heat that we've had for a few weeks. But it's here and it's only going to get worse.
Warmer temperatures are affecting wildlife, with some species disappearing and others arriving in Ireland like never before.
We have that lovely white little egret that has come up from Spain. 30 years ago, if you said you saw one of those, people would think you were on the blue Smarties. How could you have those in Ireland? They only occurred in the south of Europe. Now they're all around the country, they're breeding, they're nesting.
Sunny days still spark a sense of leisure among the Irish psyche. But is it the case that summer heatwaves elicit a sense of threat?
I would regard climate change as a climate crisis, and climate crisis is actually a health crisis.
There is increasing evidence of climate change directly affecting mortality rates.
The Lancet Countdown did a report there in 2026 detailing that in 2024 nearly 63,000 people died in Europe from heat-related illness, which is a staggering number. If that was an earthquake like in Venezuela, we'd all be up in arms, we're saying we need an emergency response.
Heatwave conditions can really affect people who are vulnerable.
For example, people who are working outdoors, people with underlying conditions such as cardiovascular disease or respiratory disease. Well, on a day like today, which is, I think, 25 degrees, that can lead to heat stress and to heat stroke. You can maybe see it in the admissions to the emergency departments in our hospitals, and you can see people struggling.
Chaotic scenes erupted in French supermarkets in early July. Scuffles broke out as customers rushed to buy limited stocks of air conditioning units and fans.
A lot of municipalities just opened up the parks and said sleep outdoors, keep the shutters closed all day. You live in a twilight zone for much of the day, and then you open the windows wide at night to let in some fresh air. It's been tough on children, it's been tough on parents with kids when the schools closed. It's been very tough on anyone who wants to commute to work.
Typically you'd have one in an open plan area. You know, the air will move around and it'll cool it down. Some people like to put one in each bedroom.
In Dublin, installing air conditioning systems for almost 20 years, Stephen Harkin says it's never been busier.
There's a huge increase in demand now, so particularly with residential, where there's a lot of people now, it's just too uncomfortable in the homes. So I'd say maybe 10 years ago, we might get 1 or 2 inquiries per month. Now we're getting 1 or 2 inquiries per hour for residential purposes. So there's a huge surge in that sector.
Temporary or portable air conditioning systems have sold out in Ireland and across Europe.
The demand has outweighed supply significantly. There's a lot more interest, obviously, as people are more uncomfortable in their houses. Suppliers have informed us that there's no more coming in the near future. When I say near future, maybe next 2 or 3 months. The HSE arrived with us there 2 weeks ago and literally just took the rest of our stock for a Dublin hospital.
Stephen says those living in aerated homes can face particular heat discomfort.
Too much insulation and no source of cooling is a recipe for disaster. Basically, if it's 28 degrees outside, you open your window, you're bringing 28 degrees into your home and you're locking it in there.
In Paris, it's the famous zinc roofs on the city's Haussmann buildings that are locking the heat in.
It's been really, really difficult, I must say. I'm just opening the windows, putting my fan on, especially under these zinc roofs, which I'm on the top floor, so it is like an oven in here.
Obviously, they can't change the entire city. The zinc roofs are famous, and you're not going to do away with them all. And what would you replace them with? Because then there's also winter. And, you know, let's not forget, for most of the year, Paris is a temperate climate.
Dilemmas like this look set to continue as long-standing ways of living grapple with the realities of the future.
We will potentially see more fires occurring in regions that previously didn't experience wildfires.
We have to future-proof our society and our economy to deal with hazards down the line. Climate change is the greatest threat to global health this century. That's unquestionable. We're going towards an unlivable world.
Is nobody going to believe us and put an end to all these emissions? Because otherwise it's just going to get warmer and warmer and warmer, and by the year 2100 half the world will be dead from the heat. I'm glad I'll be gone before that.
That report from Conor McMorrow. Well, we're joined now in studio by Pete Lunn, behavioural scientist with the SRI. And Pete, thanks for coming into us this evening. Those warnings that we heard there at the end of Conor's package, particularly, you know, we've heard them before. We've been hearing them for years, and yet there's still a sense, isn't there, that we're not acting with the urgency that we should be acting with. So why?
There's a very big difference between somebody telling you something, a scientist like me, who's giving you something in abstract terms, in kind of facts and figures and statistics and theoretical warnings, and experiencing something for yourself. So your contributor on that package there was saying it's taking us such a long time to learn. Well, you learn really, really quickly if you put your hand on a hot plate and burn yourself, but you have to have the personal experience. It has to be tangible, it has to be concrete, it has to be something you feel. Now, what's interesting about this summer is I think increasingly people are. I was on the West Coast last week. It was extraordinary. I've never seen Ireland look so brown, and the roads were literally melting. And we were having a fabulous time on a holiday with this amazing weather, but it's really deeply unsettling to see something like that and to see how unusual that is and to be touched by it yourself. And if that doesn't change you, if that doesn't make you think a little bit more, then either you're in denial or you're being a bit foolish.
Do you think some Irish people have mixed feelings about it? I mean, particularly the sunny weather that we've been having. It does lead to, as you say, very enjoyable days out on the beach. But at the same time, there's a discomfort about it, isn't there? There's a sense that this shouldn't be happening.
Yes, absolutely. I describe it as a kind of discomfort, or that it's somewhat unsettling. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by this. I mean, what is occurring is precisely what the climate scientists have been telling us for decades was going to occur. So in a way, one hopes that what it actually does is it leads people to trust that science more and to understand that, you know, the modelling is telling us something tangible and real and concrete and it's true. So we shouldn't be hugely surprised by it, but we will still be shocked by it, because the visceral experience, the actual moments where you have contact with it and the world seems different, those are the moments where you really learn and you might change your mind. Now, it's too early at this stage to say, because we don't have the data, that what's happened this year is making some kind of psychological change in people's either understanding of or attitudes towards climate change. We don't yet have the data. But it wouldn't be hugely surprising if that turned out to be the case, because it's just a much more real experience this year than it's been before.
I wonder what you think of what Éanna Líonán was saying there, that, you know, we have already seen evidence of climate change in the floods and the wet winters that we've been having, and yet for whatever reason we don't seem to equate that as much with climate change as we have with the wildfires and the really hot sun.
There may be some truth in that. Fire is particularly frightening, but I also think it's just becoming more regular. It's happening more often. I mean, you think of all the named storms we've had in the last couple of years. Go back to January, February, the southeast and Dublin were just huge amounts of heavy rain, day after day after day. And now we're being told we can't use our hose pipes because there's so little, right? So this is just happening to us more and more. Now, the extremes are always going to have more psychological impact. They do what I would call reducing the psychological distance between you and the event. So we haven't really responded to the increased frequency of extreme events. It's the actual extremity that really hits you. When you experience one, or your friends do, they come back from holiday and they say, you know, we couldn't actually go out in the middle of the day at all, or they get too close to a wildfire area and they get scared. When things are personal to you or to your friends and your family, then it starts to have much more psychological impact. That psychological distance is reduced. And
yet we've seen in recent years, politically, in Ireland but also internationally, the climate seems to have fallen down the political agenda. There's a feeling that, you know, that's not as important anymore from a political perspective, and that maybe nothing is going to get done. Do you think this might change that?
I think there's something subtle here. Climate hasn't really fallen down the political agenda. Other things have moved up it.
Okay.
So, you know, we have huge security problems. The Trump presidency has obviously added to that. We have wars that we didn't have before. Obviously, we've had COVID come through as well. There's been a big cost of living crisis following those security concerns and COVID and so on. So other things have bubbled up because we live in such unsettled, uncertain times. Interestingly, the large majority of people in Ireland, in Europe, and across the world, we know from evidence, are either very worried about climate change or worried about climate change, and that has continued to be the case. That's been the case for the last 5 or 10 years. The large majority of the global population thinks that countries and politicians need to do more to tackle climate change. And that hasn't changed either. So what's really happened is other things have bubbled up rather than climate change moving down. But of course, if other things bubble up, climate change might move down in the priorities of politicians because there's only a limited amount of things that they're going to talk about and put their minds to. But it certainly isn't the case that the population is less worried about climate change. If anything, they're probably more worried.
OK, well, finally, then, one of the immediate effects is this hosepipe ban that's coming into place for the entire country tomorrow, and we're being told to put in a call if we see somebody with the hosepipe out from tomorrow. Do you think people will, first of all, abide by it, and also will they snitch?
The evidence on these kind of collective action problems is pretty clear. The large majority of people will abide by it. There will be a minority who don't. And some people, if they see someone not doing it, will snitch on them. And the evidence couldn't be clearer that that's the case. However, the most important check on people's behaviour, as is ever the case with these things, is actually just social disapproval. A lot of people won't go out and use the hosepipe if they think they're going to be seen because of what they worry other people will think of them, the kind of reaction they'll provoke, even if they don't get snitched on. So human nature works for us in these circumstances. It's kind of self-policing.
OK, Pete, thank you so much for coming in to us this evening.